So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hormoz. I'm here with co-director Jane. We are from Results CIC. We're a coaching and training company working with marginalized people. We also work with leaders of organizations who want to consider changes to incorporate inclusion within their organizations. This is going to be a highly interactive session. So have pen and paper ready. And we want to make you think, reflect, and maybe challenge some preconceptions. Importantly, we want you to go forward with an action after this session. Bear with me while I load our slides. So, why bother? Over to Jane, who will ask you some questions in a poll.
Hello, everybody. It's lovely to be here. A pleasure. So why does inclusion matter? And we're going to wake you up with a quick poll, a vote, with just 3 questions. And Lucy Wakeford is going to provide us with magic Q&A, multiple choice answers if you go over to Q&A. And we want you to vote against the answer that you think is correct. Let's see how much you know. Okay. 3 questions. First question. What percentage of FTSE 100 companies have women chief executives? What percentage of FTSE 100 companies have women chief executives? Okay, we're going to give you 3 possible answers. Joe Salt is brilliant, I can say. Is it number 1, 5%? Or number 2, 8%. Or number 3, 15%. Please can you vote now? We have 103 of us. Get those votes in, please. 5%, 8%, or 15%. A moment to vote. Okay. So, at the moment, the majority of the 17 are voting for 5%, and sadly that is true. Thank you. Question 2. What percentage of FTSE 100 companies have chief executives who are Black or Asian or minority ethnic? Is it first 1%? Second, 3%? Third, 11%. Can you put down your votes? How many chief executives who are racially discriminated, another phrase we use, or Black, Asian, minority ethnic? Thank you, the votes are coming on. Put your vote now. Nobody said 11. Okay, from the people who've voted so far, let's have a look. Most people have got your fantastic lot, 3%, and that's absolutely spot on and a shock, I think. Final question. When teams have 1 or more members representing their target users, so when teams have 1 or more members representing their target users, how much more likely are they to capture new markets? So teams with representative members of target users, how much more likely are they to capture new markets? Is it 19%, 40%, or 70%? Put your votes now. Okay, 40 is ahead at the moment, I suppose. Okay. At the moment, 40% is slightly ahead by only one vote. The answer, folks, is 70, and that should encourage us, I hope. Okay, Hormuz, you want to talk about people's question they're going to pose for themselves? Back to you.
Thank you, Jane. One of the things that we will do a bit later is for you to think about something to consider about inclusion, either from your own personal point of view or for your organization. So we're going to give you a little bit of time for you to consider a question which can begin with something like, how can I? How can my organization ... And just make, write down that question for yourself. Something that's in your mind. Giving you some time now. Another half a minute. Okay, we will go back to this a bit later. So if you haven't quite figured out exactly what that question is, you will have a little bit more time later to consider it. We want to now do one of our exercises with you. And here it is. You've got some new hires, some new staff joining your organization. And here are 8 short descriptions. We want you to consider these and just think of your immediate instinctive reaction to them and jot down, was it positive? Was it negative? Was it neutral? Okay, I will read each one twice. How would you feel about hiring someone who requires lifetime medication to stabilize their mood? Requires lifetime medication to stabilize their mood. Someone who cannot make phone calls. Someone who cannot make phone calls. What about someone who has experienced psychotic periods of depression? Has experienced psychotic periods of depression. Someone who, due to support needs, could not take on urgent, short-notice tasks. Due to support needs, could not take on urgent, short notice tasks. Is a gay ex-refugee to the UK from the Middle East? Is a gay ex-refugee to the UK from the Middle East? Someone who has bipolar condition. Has bipolar condition. Someone who has had to leave 2 places of employment due to discrimination. Has had to leave 2 places of employment due to discrimination. And someone who has made 6 career changes so far. Has made 6 career changes so far. So here's the question. Would you give Jane and I the job? Every point and characteristic you've seen here is one of us. We have held senior positions, board members. Jane has been a chair as well, and we've led Results CIC for several years. We hope this exercise makes you think about aspects of capability and talent. Over to Jane for another exercise.
Thank you. Some beautiful comments on chat there. Can we go to the next slide? Please, we'll try something different. A beautiful photograph. We're going to encourage you to go on a walk in the park. How's that? It's virtual, but try and make the most of it. So what we'd like you to do, if you can, close your eyes and relax. And please just listen to a story and try to vividly picture the way I describe the story. Really look at the visual detail of your story. Okay, so relax and breathe. Close your eyes if you wish and picture the story. Here we go. You're walking along a quiet street. The weather is lovely. You're feeling calm. Up ahead, you see a police officer. The police officer is bending down to speak to somebody, but you can't see who that is at first. As you walk closer, you see the person the police officer is speaking to seems to be a homeless person who is surrounded by their few possessions. As you walk past, you see another person who is talking to the homeless person. They seem to know them quite well. You turn the corner and walk through a small, beautiful park. On a park bench, there is a couple. From what you can see and hear as you walk past, they're having a bit of an argument with each other. There are two young children in the pushchair near the couple. The park is close to a local hospital, and on another park bench there's a surgeon wearing not blue but flesh-coloured scrubs, and the surgeon is eating their lunch. So you walk through the park to your destination, which is the local college, and there you see the person you had arranged to meet is the principal of the college, standing outside the door, enjoying the sun for a moment. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that virtual walk, and please can you really try to hold in your mind what you saw? And I'm going to ask you some questions to encourage you to reflect on what you saw during the story. There were 9 characters in the story: police officer, person who seemed to be homeless, a third person who knew the homeless person, a couple, 2 children, a surgeon and a college principal. So I'd like to ask you, in your mind's eye, think about those characters. Did they look similar to each other? What kind of age were the people in the story? There were 2 children, we know. Otherwise, what age were they? Were they similar? What race? What gender? Did any of the characters have disabilities that you could see? So please think now about your police officer. What gender? What race? What age? What physical features? Any disabilities? Before you knew about the person the police officer was bending down to, did you picture who that person was before we mentioned they seemed to be homeless? How was the person behaving? What did the homeless person look like in your mind? What gender? What age? What race? Any special physical features or disabilities? What was the third person talking to the homeless person like? What kind of gestures did they give, or tone did they use, or facial expression? Thinking about the couple on the bench, what gender were they? The same or different? What age, race, any disabilities? And the children, the 2 children in the pushchair, did they look like the couple? Were they similar to each other? How about the surgeon? How old were they? What gender? What race? What age? Did the surgeon have any disabilities? And we mentioned that his scrub, the surgeon's scrub was my bias, were flesh-coloured. What colour did you see flesh-coloured as? Finally, the college principal, what was their gender, age, race, any disabilities? So please have a think for a moment, just pause, let you gather your thoughts, and please consider what did this story and your picturing of it and your responses to the questions tell you? What might be coming to the surface? How could you use this, maybe? Think about. Okay, while you think about that, we're going to do a technical miracle and show you a video which we've been going to hand you back to Hormels. Thank you.
Hi, yes, thank you for that, Jane. So we're going to show you a very quick 2-minute video, and this is from 3 of our alumni, actually, and people who we have since collaborated with quite extensively. So here's the video.
words to describe me: cheeky, curious, determined, friendly, caring.
The 5 words I would use to describe myself are kind, tenacious, hardworking, a work in progress, and a masterpiece.
My top tips for social collaboration would be to be ready to learn and to share, to bring something positive to the people you work with, and to turn gloomy situations into happy ones.
My piece of wisdom actually comes from my dad, who always said to keep an open mind. You never know what type of collaboration is going to help, and you never know where your strengths could assist somebody's challenges or where their strengths could assist your challenges.
Social collaboration is best achieved when you ensure that everyone who is working alongside you and not everyone that you agree with. Try and have some people included in that space who you might fundamentally disagree on at least 2 or 3 core issues. Don't just talk to your bubble, include others.
We already hope you enjoyed that video. And we're going to ask you, what did you notice about the speakers? I would guess that we all noticed that all 3 of our fantastic speakers on the film were Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, or we could say racially discriminated. Did you notice they were also all disabled? Maybe not something you could say, but just a thought to throw in there. No, Keller said no, I probably wouldn't have, but they are superb role models. Think about what that tells you. Okay, we hope you enjoyed that. And now it's back to you to do some hard work with some self-coaching. So thinking about your question from the start, please bring that back. And back to Hormels.
Thank you, Jane. So going back to the question that we asked you to think about inclusion, I'm going to do what in effect is a self-coaching exercise for this last section of our presentation. So it gives you a chance to consider step by step the action that you want to take going forward, okay? So whatever that question was, if you haven't thought about it, it could just be one step you want to take forward for further inclusion, or whatever that question was, try to be very specific now. Make it more specific. I will ask each question twice as we go forward here. Okay. How will you know when you have achieved it? How will you know when you have achieved it? Why is the issue important to you? Why is the issue important to you? What is the current situation? What is the current situation? What are the relevant facts about this issue? What are the relevant facts about the issue? What are your opinions and feelings about the issue? What are your opinions and feelings about the issue? What will happen if you don't tackle it? What will happen if you don't tackle it? What will be different if you do tackle it? What will be different if you do tackle it? Who else is involved? Who else is involved? What ways could you begin to tackle the issue? What ways could you begin to tackle the issue? What would you do if you had unlimited time and money? What would you do if you had unlimited time and money? What would someone whose opinion you trust tell you to do? What would someone whose opinion you trust tell you to do? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? How else might you tackle this issue? How else might you tackle the issue? Now, choose one of the options that you have identified. Choose one of the options that you have identified. What resources will you need to prepare? What resources will you need to prepare? When will you do it? When will you do it? Who could help you? Who could help you? What might stop you, and what will you do if that barrier does appear? What might stop you, and what will you do if that barrier does appear? On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to carrying out this action? On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to carrying out this action? And finally, what would move your commitment one step closer to 10? What would move your commitment closer to 10? Thank you. That was the end of that self-coaching exercise. We do hope that you have come up with an action or actions. Some people have been sharing those in chat. Over to Jane.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm interested in whether you feel that was thought-provoking. We're really intrigued by how you found the session. We're a learning organisation and we really genuinely welcome your comments and feedback. How did it go with your question at the start? There's one person, Madeleine Spink, said she has an action plan now, which is fantastic. So would you like to use Q&A to maybe give some comments or thoughts? There's a lot that we could say. I think there was one question already there. Somebody asked us about what inclusion looks like to us. And we can start with that one if you wish, if you want a moment to reflect or just put your questions in. We actually have 10 minutes, which is such a luxury. So, almost, should we have a look at this first question? What does inclusion look like and mean to us? And can I go first? So my answer would, I think, be in two parts about what inclusion looks like. Inclusion for me would be where everybody could actually be themselves. And I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly, where people could bring who they are to work, to their life, to their relationships, where there was generally a greater openness. I think openness will be the key thing, because we would immediately learn so much more about the people we live, work with, have relationships with. So that's about access, yes, but in a very broad sense. And a corollary of that would be everybody being able to really give off their best. So not have to sort of feel they have to shrink themselves to a particular framework or culture. I hope that answers the question. And Hormuz, do you want to say a word about that one?
Yes, all I would add to that, which is great, is a place where people can be vulnerable. You know, vulnerability actually creates quite a lot of strength for people around you. And that creates further inclusion in any kind of space where you can share things which you feel awkward about or vulnerable about. And that often allows others who may have similar kind of vulnerabilities to open up. It gives permission for that dialogue to happen.
Vulnerability as a strength, that's a theme that comes up often and that we discuss a lot in the groups we work with. Thank you, and thank you for the feedback from Madeline, the positive feedback that you found the exercises useful. We're really trying to work on how we could make them interactive with a big group. Liz Minns has asked another question, a very good one. She's asked, how can we encourage more members of the disabled community to apply for roles that we look to fill? Okay, that might be one of the two other people have voted for Liz's question. Who should respond first, Thomas?
You go first again.
Okay, I should say though that Hormuz and I are both disabled. Right, as you can see, I think I'm using a lip speaker. You hear my deaf voice, but we are both actually disabled. I think, Liz, and the people who asked that question, there's something I see as a confidence gap at work in the world of employment. And I think to encourage more people who are disabled to apply is about bridging that gap. So that isn't just about perhaps promoting the confidence of disabled people with talent and their potential and encouraging them. Perhaps using unorthodox networks, that's one tip I would give. Think about unorthodox networks, people you wouldn't think of asking, do you know somebody who? But it's also about your managers, the people who may be line managing the new members who are disabled. They need to be able to talk to each other once you've reached them. And I think you have to look really openly at each stage of the communication and recruitment process. Maybe try a version of a walk in the park with yourself. If I walked myself through this recruitment process, and I was disabled in some way, what might put me off? Where would the thickets be? So try and put yourself in their shoes a little bit. Tom, was any thoughts about that? Do you want to say a word about the BBC work we did on recruiting more broadly?
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking of that, and the thinking was that people use the same methods to bring people onto their organization and do not search wide and do not change the way that they recruit very often. They do not examine what challenges specific people experience as a result of the process that there is. So with the BBC work that we did, we really got them to think about how they could just expand the way that they look at recruitment, how they could not just go to the same people again, pick the phone up and say, who do we work with now, using the same people, but also using different ways of CVs being sent to them via video, via anonymous kind of CVs, via bringing into mind what people from socioeconomic situations have challenges on in terms of being able to make that journey, for example, to an office. So making it easier and easier for them to access. In terms of disabled people as well, it is that combination of more and more people being able to be open about it. My my disability is invisible in inverted commas, but mental health is a very challenging area, and it's making it easier for people with mental health issues to expose that kind of vulnerability that we talked about more readily, and for recruiters to be okay with that. So it's creating that kind of atmosphere for them, for this to happen.
Just about that, thank you to Miriam. Back to chat, and if she mentioned her wonderful organisation, Even Break, and she's one of several brilliant organisations that are specialists in supporting recruitment for disabled people. Thank you, Miriam. And there's far more out there than we realise. Thank you. Any more questions, folks? We have a couple of minutes left. It's lovely to see your feedback. We're humbled by that. So it's a nerve-wracking thing to stand up in front of 126 people. Any further questions you have of us? I think we'd really encourage you, mentioned and chat with Liz Allen, who we know that if you like the self-coaching exercise, it's in a special free resources section of our website, and you can go in and borrow that. Here we have another question just appeared. In fact, Sophie Hobson, thank you. Cash-strapped social enterprises, could you recommend any free resources to improve inclusion and accessibility in the work culture? We've partly answered that, Sophie, because there is some material on our website, so maybe take a look at that first. Any other thoughts about free resources? I think that's also about using what's there to change our behaviour. It's amazing how a small shift in your behaviour, especially if you're maybe a leader or manager, could make a difference to people, to staff, to your customers, to your business. I think there's about awareness often, not necessarily a massive investment in change. Okay, any more questions just looking? Which partner organisations would you recommend support with employment to encourage? I think that's Even Break is one suggestion, one person who's here and speaking to Miriam. Finally, comment from Julia, the most difficult of Hormuz's questions to answer, what to do if others try to put the brakes on our inclusion work. I've had to nurture and develop allies to support. Any short answer on that, Hormuz? We've got 1 minute, so we're handing over and back to the networking.
Yeah, it's a really, really important question, and it's something. You do need to create partnerships and allies who will support your work to fight against these barriers that are there, in terms of the people who want to keep the status quo and really not be challenged by the changes that need to happen. So the way to strengthen our cause, in effect, is to create partnerships that will allow that kind of progress to happen, and we are doing it all the time. A lot of the work that we do is through partnerships, without which we couldn't really deliver the kind of works that we have done so far.
Thank you. I'm at 2:30, which I think means we have to regretfully say goodbye. Is that right? And hand over. Who are we handing over back to the networking room for a few minutes?
Okay, but don't go anywhere. In less than 2 minutes or so, we'll be straight back with the incredible Miriam Sidibe and Liam Black. So we believe you're now going for networking, but stay here.